Cloudcast Media. Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show, amplifying the voices of social impact organizations, entrepreneurs, local nonprofits, and other community champions who shape the culture, creativity, and connectivity of San Diego. Brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, bringing good things to San Diego for over 60 years. Learn more about what is good for you and good for all by visiting www.missionfed.com.
I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media. It's good to have a return appearance from one of our very stellar community leaders focusing on STEM and science and life and kids and doing great things in our community. And that is Goran Bozinovic. He is the president and CEO of Boz Life Science Research and Teaching Institute. How you doing, Goran?
Good morning. Well, thank you.
It's good to see you again.
Likewise.
Yeah. So talk about the mission of the organization.
Well, we argue that the way we teach the science and we do the science is in a little bit of a disconnect. So we're trying to flip that model upside down a little bit and try to introduce kids as early as possible to a pretty high-tech competitive research. An idea is to get kids into the labs and have them pursue projects that are intuitive to them so we can, nourish that curiosity that they have, but then also provide the tools for them to get excited about STEM and eventually have enough confidence to pursue and retain their careers.
Now, do you start as early as kindergarten?
No, not that early,
okay.
Although that conversation started already in the lab.
I know.
We're mostly working with pre-college students and high school students and college students as well. But we would like to push that boundary further and really try to do this with the middle school kids as well.
Right. When did you get interested in science and life sciences and labs and experiments and all that?
In very early high school, I was always interested, but I was very lucky to be in a system where scientists teach science. In a high school, it's a very prestigious kind of a career choice. I had a great physics and chemistry professors. We call them professors because they have PhDs.
Sure.
And we had a lab open, available to us at any time. And my physics teacher, who was a great influence on me, just made things accessible, and we can pursue things with her. And it really influenced the way I see science and pursue science. So that stuck with me.
Now, was that in your family members, mother, dad, brothers, sisters into this?
No, that's interesting. So family is a more social science kind of focus.
Sure.
And I had enough of that at the dinner table, but I liked outside.
SPSS and all those type of tests?
There you go.
Right. I swear I wouldn't say that word again, but I got a master's of science in mass communications, and I'm a lot older than you, so we had to use those computer cards, and they almost, put me out of commission in that aspect of it. So what excites you the most when you see the looks on these kids' eyes that have never probably been exposed to science the way you're doing, correct?
Right. So what's exciting is their transition that becomes very visceral and very evident after they kind of get, I would call, disabused from usual education system. When they learn that this is a community thing, science is a conversation, science is doing this together and not really a competition. When they figure out that they don't have to worry about bypassing a system and trying to get the points, and the guard is off, that's when the transition really starts.
Right. And does that start because it's so practical what you do? They're actually touching things and experimenting and doing things to stuff?
That's a big factor. The idea is to introduce them to a diverse research projects where they can intuitively pursue what they like and then have it as a conversation. Now, there are all the standards that we apply in science that are part of that.
Sure.
But we are kind of stratifying that approach so they don't get overwhelmed early, but by the time they have finished, they really kind of get a sense how science is done.
Right. It's interesting when you bring this up, and you're right. And this is not to put anybody under the bus here, but, unless you were some guy who liked to watch, these science shows as a young kid on TV, when you get to have science in school, can you make it any more treacherous for us folks who aren't good at science, like me? And then sort of have a disdain for it, which is not not science's fault. It's just how it was presented. That's not an unusual comment, as you well know. And I know there are some wonderful science teachers. That's another statement of the world that are really doing this. When you talk about having the kids, intuitively work on some of their projects, do you do any type of interest surveys with the kids ahead of time and say, what are you interested in? And boy, it sounds like you would be working on molecular biology. I'm making up stuff, obviously.
Right. We do have a questionnaire and an essay part before they start with us to kind of get a sense to what their priorities and interests are. But the cool thing about high school kids is that they're interested in a lot of stuff, but they haven't been exposed to a lot of stuff. So they will come to the lab, and then we'll have 4 different, very diverse projects. And they think that they know what they want to do, but just being introduced to different stuff, they can get really excited about things. So they get to explore first. And then once they kind of get a sense what it is and what is it about, then they can dive in and start doing the science on a higher level.
Right, exactly. So you launched this thing in March of 2019?
Yeah, we've been around for a couple of years.
Right, exactly. And so, again, we're chatting with Goran Bozinovic. He is the president and CEO of the Boz Life Science Research and Teaching Institute. I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media. So did you come up with this idea, or do you work with your colleagues at UCSD, or, my goodness, it just, something flew into my brain and we're going to be doing this?
Right. So I get actually frustrated. I'm privileged to be at UCSD. It's a fantastic institution. I interact with great people there. But what I noticed is that we were talking to students or interacting with the students about science and talking about what we know. But that's not what the science is about. Science is about what we don't know and what is yet to be done and what needs to be pursued, right? So the idea was to really get kids to understand what it takes to do science after they're done with the school, which is a very different game than what they play in their undergraduate. So everything kind of started as a frustration, and luckily, I had a good ear from a UCSD extension to really understand the vision and the model, and then we started playing with it. And we've been optimizing it for a couple of years now. We're getting a better sense about real metrics and what matters in the long run for these kids to succeed.
Right.
But the idea is not to misrepresent what the science is. Science is a grind, and science is fun. But what they see on a Discovery Channel or what they see in National Geographic is not really exactly how science is done. We spend a lot of time in front of the computers. We spend a lot of time troubleshooting things, figuring out why things are not working. And it's exhilarating, but we want students to also sense that instead of kind of getting instant gratification in site visits or, seeing pictures and people on a boat collecting samples. That's a part of it, but it's a huge part of it. They really don't understand.
Yeah, Goran, you're spot on. When we talk about this, and I was talking about my field, journalism, where I got a degree and became a sports writer, and then went to the dark side in journalism on the marketing side afterwards. But that being said, everyone looks at the sexy, Watergate, Woodward and Bernstein, and listen, that is pretty cool stuff. The tedious nature to get to that point, right. The zillions of interviews, the 4,000 things that never make it are on the cutting room floor. Well, you didn't see that part, or the ones who are on, watching these great, crime shows. That's great, but they're in the lab for 3 weeks, trying to dissect stuff. This is just your world, right? In this aspect of it. Do you let students know that's how science pretty much works ahead of time, or you let them discover it on their own?
It's a transition. We don't want to discourage them,
right.
Definitely.
That's right.
Because I think the expectations might be a little different. But where transition really happens is when they put a lot of work into something and eventually discover it, right? So we're kind of building both intellectual and physical stamina for them to sustain themselves in the process so they know what the expectation is. That happens relatively early in the game, but it's dosed strategically so they just, don't run away. But once they really realize what it is, and as long as they're treated as a colleague, and as long as there is no threat to them, right, of the test of being wrong, we actually encourage them to be wrong. That's the whole idea about being a scientist. And when the guard is down, that's when kind of their immersion into a whole process happens. And we've been having fantastic response because practically all of the students that enter our program stay in the program, and they ask us to continue, most of them. So that tells us something about their perception. Yep.
We're talking to Goran Bozinovic. He is the president and CEO of BozLife Science Research and Teaching Institute. I'm Drew Schlosberg, and you're listening to Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show on Cloudcast Media, brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, bringing great things to San Diego for 60 years. So how many students go through the program in a year? Is it broken down into semesters or quarters? How does that work?
So we work on the UCSD academic calendar, which is the 11-week course.
Right.
That's really a minimum that we figured out the students can get a sense for how science is done. We offer quite a range of different research immersion programs. So we do epigenetics and neurobiology, environmental science, data science. Now we're a lot more into bioinformatics and biostatistics, because we think that's an absolutely critical component of them becoming scientists.
Sure.
So we rotate a lot of research programs, and they're all active research studies that we have. So, for example, we've taken students to Channel Islands to collect environmental samples because we're working on an endangered abalone species in Southern California using the environmental DNA technology. And that's a really very challenging thing to do as a scientist, but it's really fun to do with the high school students. And we think that type of science should not be reserved only for postdocs or advanced scientists.
Agree.
But it should really be introduced to kids as early as possible.
Right. And do you work with underrepresented students, or it's across the board?
Right. So that is our goal. Our goal is to really diversify science and really bring that science to a community. As a nonprofit, we can do that. Partnering with UCSD Extension, who provides a lot of scholarships for our program, gives us an opportunity to really get into a community. We've also done some international projects trying to see how much we can eventually push this. So now we're still slowly establishing international relationships with Ghana and with Chile and a couple of other countries, just to also merge the cultural differences in addition to, like maybe environments where the students are more challenged or don't have access to something like this, and collect the data and see how effective this model is.
No, I think that's terrific. Goran, when we come back from break, we're going to chat about the annual Environmental Science and Innovative STEM Education Symposiums coming up next week. Also want to just get your thoughts on, STEM education, community outreach, and I'll throw that other A in there, STEAM, how STEAM is related to STEM. Of course it is. And, but how critical it is just the access to high-end biology research. I mean, UCSD, my goodness, poster child for that stuff, right? We return with Goran Bozinovic. He is the president and CEO of BozLife Science Research and Teaching Institute. I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media, and we will be right back.
When you do your banking with Mission Fed, you get great rates on auto and home loans. That's good for you, but something good also happens for a lot of other people. We're not for profit, so we put money back into the community to help lots of great nonprofits to keep San Diego strong. So you're not just getting something good, you're doing something good. Come to Mission Fed. It's banking that's good for all.
Brand amplification is the DNA of Cloudcast Media, and our code is the powerful blending of sound, voice, and storytelling to lift local brands and their communities. Whether it is our Brandcast, Schoolcast, or Causecast platforms, the unifying ethos is all about this community, the one you call home. If you dare to dream and want to explore the brand amplification of Cloudcast, a national leader in local podcasting and other Winfluence strategies, please visit us at cloudcast.us.
I'm Drew Schlosberg, and you're listening to Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show on Cloudcast Media, brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, bringing great things to San Diego for more than 60 years. We are chatting with Goran Bozinovic. He is the president and CEO of Boz Life Science Research and Teaching Institute. And I know my colleague Charles Parisi loves working with you. He loves science, loves the fact that you're working with these the students. Talk a little bit about what you've done with Charles, what type of projects you've done with Charles, and then we'll get to talk about the Symposium event next week.
Yes, Charles has been along this ride from the beginning. He's been a fantastic partner, and every time I have a problem, I actually reach out to Charles first.
Right.
He's my ultimate advisor, I call him. One example that would kind of stand out is Charles and Lisa, my wife, who's a co-founder of the Institute, and I got together for dinner and started kind of brainstorming what we can do with this program. And then decided to try to put together, during the pandemic, a virtual research immersion program with the students from Ghana and underserved students from Oregon and San Diego. And the idea is to bring kind of a multicultural format to this and see how students in a very challenging learning conditions work together, and if they can handle kind of the science load that we put on them. And this is probably the most rewarding experience I had at the Institute so far, because it was a multi-learning experience on a different levels. We've done tons of really good science, and kids did fantastically well. But the way they interacted with one another and how they grew through the program was really, really fascinating to me. So this is example how Charles's brain works too. He just sees beyond the limits, and it's really fun to interact.
Yeah, there are no limits when you work with Charles, and of course, Charles is my business associate and partner with Cloudcast Media, and his passion is working with underrepresented kids, but he's a science guy. He loves science. He loves literacy as well on that. Talk about the Symposium next week. What's that all about? Right.
So last year at this time, we had a first annual event.
Right.
So this is the opportunity where our collaborators, partners, accomplished scientists, people from government, educators come together and spend a day and a half talking about the cool science and innovative STEM. We did it online last year due to COVID. This year, we have opportunity to do it in the downtown UCSD new building and Park and Market.
Okay, all right.
Right. So this is going to be a 2-day event. It starts on 21st, Friday at 4 o'clock with the student poster presentations, and we have a scheduled speakers from 5 to 9. Diverse topics. These are all people who have been one way or the other involved in the Institute's work. And they provided either collaborative effort, partnership to do our research, and also served an advisory role and a supportive role to develop the program as well.
Right. And Park and Market, for our listeners, is sort of this new building, part of the building. Well, I guess it is sort of new. In downtown, UCSD is part of their extension, I imagine. And there's got so much learning going on at that building. It's going to be great. How do people sign up for that? Is there a website?
Yes, so information is on our website.
Okay.
So if you go to the bozinstitute.org, you can find information how to sign up. We also have our media outlets. So we have an Instagram account, and we also provide a detailed information about it in our flyer that is posted on the website as well. So you can see the schedule, you can see the speakers and the topics that they're going to talk about. There's some really interesting talks.
Oh, and the website is?
bozinstitute.org.
Simple as that. B-O-Z, okay, right. Not B-O-S-S.
Right.
Not the boss, the singer, in that aspect of it. So STEM education, obviously was not a word when I was going to school.
Right.
Now that's all you hear, and that's fine. That's cool. Science, technology, education, and math, and of course, us folks that are in the part of the arts and innovative side, and then my science friends, we're innovative and we're artistic, so quit saying we're not, right? Talk about how STEAM gets involved in it, and of course all scientists are very creative and innovative, for God's sake.
Right. Well, we've started incorporating more of an art part into our program as well. We partner with a postdoc from UCSD who is really good at using art as a learning tool to really enhance students' experience. We have a couple of different ideas to make educational material that is user-friendly, that uses multiple sensory kind of application to it. So using your hands, vision, auditory, too, because we think that the learning is not necessarily, copying paragraphs and then try to spit them back on the exam. We think that the learning should be very interactive and very dynamic.
And great learning always is. And we all know that the learning styles, whether it's kinesthetic, like you're talking about, or auditory or visual, we learn differently.
Right.
Because we are individuals. And, that when people understand that I'm not getting it this way, well, maybe it should be presented that way. Oh, now I get it. Well, yeah, exactly. That's what it's all about. Science is something, as what I love what you're doing with it, and it's rigorous science. It's not it's real rigorous science, obviously. And I know you want to push it down into the middle schools and eventually into the elementary schools, and who knows, maybe TK or something like that down the road. But I think when you bring it to life, and I know you guys do this, and people see the applications. Of course, you have a ton of applications because they're doing lab. But when just a little layperson, this is why it's important to study X, because this is how it works with your life, because everything you touch is science related. Do you get into that type of stuff?
Right. So that's a key, I think. The key is to make it applied, and
right.
The key is to make it visceral and relatable. I think disconnect sometimes from the science, from the general public, happens because we talk in a very technical terms, and there's a bit of a disconnect of how does this matter to me? How does this affect me directly? If that message come across very quickly, it's a completely different attitude about doing it. So we get to the point where once students understand that, they're willing to go all the way to the end, which is technically publishing their work. And we have high school students who've done the program with us, who are authors on papers in reputable science journals. And so it's a pleasure to walk him from the beginning of the process when they're interested, but they know very little about it, all the way down to what it takes to publish a work that is, reviewed by a science community before they can.
Sure.
Yeah. But the process, you're right, starts exactly at that. How does this affect me? Why is that important to me? Why should I contribute to this? When those questions are out of the way, and it becomes a full immersion.
Yeah, and that should be, the basis for any type of learning, whether it's science, whether it's math, whether it's language arts, social studies. I mean, I don't care what topic you're
right.
talking about. I've been saying this a lot lately on the show. And I've been fortunate to be around education for quite a bit, and still am. One of the organizations I work quite heavily with is Classroom of the Future Foundation, which loves this type of stuff, and Charles and Cloudcast are partners of ours. We've known since people were walking upright that when people are motivated to do something, they raise it to a different level.
Right.
It just took people in education a little bit longer to focus on that, and
it's still taking us.
Spot on. Yeah. I'm so see. That was Goran saying it, not Drew Schlosberg. Actually, right. but you're spot on. And when we break those things down, when we you blow that stuff up, and that's the beauty of having scientists teach the class and all that business. And that's not knocking teachers. Listen at all. They do an unbelievable job when you close the door for 182 days, and
right.
In that aspect of it. But I think that's so important. So. How do people get into your institute? How do they, if a student wants to, a parent is listening to this interview and said, I want my kid to be involved in this, what do they do?
Sure. So there is more of a structured, kind of a formal way through UCSD extended pre-college program, and there's a direct way through the lab.
Okay.
As I said before, people always say, well, what are the prerequisites? What do I need to know to get in a program? And my attitude, which kind of sometimes makes people wonder, is the less they know, the better it is. I would rather have...
They're not prejudiced.
Well, that's one thing. The second thing is we really like to introduce him from a fresh start to a different model of learning, right? Yeah. So just expressing the interest, there's the info@bozinstitute.org. They can simply send the inquiry email and just say, hey, this is who I am. I'm interested in this. I see what you guys are doing. How can I eventually create the opportunity for myself? And we will reply to that and start the conversation, because we like to make it a little bit more organic and a little less formal.
Right.
And when we learn about individual, we bring him to the lab, have a conversation, and take it from there.
Right. I know you guys are just starting off on this aspect of it, but I'm assuming in the playbook is going to be now it's 2039. You're still doing this, and because you're excited about it, and that's great. Now you got 20 years of some metrics to follow someone and see where they've gone. Is that in the ball game, some longitudinal studies?
It's really important. That's critical because we always argue what is the true metric of the success of a program, and the idea is you're not going to see necessarily the immediate make me feel good number, but what we really want to ask is where are they 5 years from now? Where are they 10 years from now? And we want to know, we want to kind of be a broker in this process as well. We'll give him a start, but we also want to point out and partner with people who can eventually see him further down the process. Because I think if you do it just very isolated and episodic, it's not necessarily going to work. So we're working pretty hard on collecting the data and to better understand our success and student success by the continuity. We want to know, where they go and where they stay, and how the process unfolds from there.
Yeah, no, that's great. We're chatting with Goran Bozinovic. He is the president and CEO of Boz Life Science Research and Teaching Institute. I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media. You're listening to Drew Schlosberg's Spotlight on the Community Show, brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, bringing great things to San Diego for the 60 years. Two things before we have you wrap up with some of your thoughts here. One, would love to have you come back as always. You always have such great content. And if you don't mind, would love to bring a student or a former student and two students as much, and they can just talk about what their experiences were and how it changed some of their dynamic and that aspect of it. And again, shout out that website again for the symposium next week.
It's at bozinstitute.org, BOZ institute.org.
And what can our listeners do to support your efforts?
Well, get involved. That's the first thing. And spread the word in the community, because we would like this model to take off. This takes a community effort. We are, a small nonprofit that is kind of pushing the boundary a little bit, but it really takes kind of a village to do this. And the science, as everybody knows, is not cheap. So if we're going to do a quality science, we're going to need a support from, bigger names, bigger institutions to eventually execute this program to the fullest.
No, that sounds great. Goran, always a pleasure chatting with you. It's a lively conversation as always. We're going to look forward to having you back on sooner than later with one of your students.
Likewise. Thank you for having me.
You bet. I'm Drew Schlosberg, and you've been listening to another edition of Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community here in Mission Fed Credit Union in our beautiful Mission Fed studios.
You've been listening to an episode of Drew Schlosberg's Spotlight on the Community Show, amplifying the voices of social impact organizations, entrepreneurs, local nonprofits, and other community champions who shape the culture, creativity, and connectivity of San Diego community. Brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, bringing good things to San Diego for over 60 years. Learn more about what is good for you and good for all by visiting www.missionfed.com.
Cloudcast Media.